Hello everyone, my name is JaeAIK, and I finally sat down and decided to make the compilation video for the Granblue Versus shorts that I made many months ago. Obviously, I'm more of a Versus player than I am a Granblue fantasy player, though I am familiar with side games and their many other IPs. So because of that, there were some inaccuracies or things that I've missed while making these series of videos, and the comment section was nice enough to inform me of my mistakes and or little tidbits / fun facts that I'll be including on the side of these videos. I'm not afraid to admit when or where I got things wrong, so if you got any more things that you would like for me to add or things that I still got wrong, feel free to add them down in the comment section down below. Gran and Jeta are the main characters of the Granblue Fantasy Gacha, though where they are in their respective journeys in Versus is completely different from one another. Gran is just starting out in his skyfaring adventures, and it's shown in his abilities to swing the sword. He puts his whole soul and motion into these swings because, well, he's inexperienced in both combat and as a skyfarer. Jeta, on the other hand, is very much an experienced skyfarer. She's casual, carefree, and fluid in how she does her attacks despite having very similar moves to her male counterpart. But what really sells that she's experienced is her ability to call down each and every one of the eternal weapons in her skybound art. A task that even in the gacha is a little bit tedious, time-consuming, and dare I say, difficult at times. This all stems from a long-running joke that the veterans of Granblue Fantasy all use the female avatar, which goes to show how in side games is with their own community. We can't have a Granblue fighting game without Catalina, as her importance in the story of the overarching Granblue story isn't something to be trifled with. Catalina is oftentimes very stark and serious due to the nature of her job as bodyguard / loyal retainer to Lyria, but just like in her windscreen, can be a very caring person, oftentimes looking after the health and safety of not just Lyria, but your entire crew. But the whole bodyguard, retainer, big sister vibe that she emanates translates into her gameplay by giving her all the tools necessary, like Gran. But unlike Gran's pure aggressive give it your all playstyle, Catalina embodies a more defensive style of play, wearing you down with her sword, then going in for the big strikes of damage when your guard gets broken. This is all in part due to the differences in experience with Gran. They may have very similar movesets, but because of her experience, she's going to be a little bit more calculating and assessing what's going on in the battlefield before diving in. Charlot is the captain of the Holy Knights that's plagued by self-doubts because of her race, Harvin's biggest crutch, their height. While undoubtedly skilled in her abilities, mentions of her stature makes her furious when she's otherwise described as calm and steadfast. It's perhaps why in Granblue Fantasy Versus she appears on a stack of boxes, trying to present herself as taller than she actually is, or at least put on the facade as she's not just fighting regular Joes, but other legendary heroes that are in the Granblue. But despite this, Charlot more than makes up for her lack of height with the impressive sword that she wields, giving her great reach. And she uses her short posture to her advantage by letting her do wacky Blanca Ball type things in her shining onslaught, and her sword being as big as her, maybe even bigger, allows for some fun moves like Sword of Lumiel. So while she may be short, Charlotta does showcase a very impressive level of strength to make up for her short posture. Lancelot is known as one of the vice captains of the Order of the Black Dragons and Dragon Knight, a title shared with fellow Versus member Percival, and not yet in the game, Vayne and Siegfried. His title is known as the Twin Fang Prodigy, as Lancelot is known to be very studious, well-trained, and very level-headed, despite what some people consider his commoner upbringing. This is translated into gameplay by forcing the players to really get on their toes and think about how they want to position Lancelot next. Thanks to his abundance in movement abilities and options, it's easy for Lancelot to gain momentum and stay on the offensive. But because of his low range as a dagger wielder, one misstep can be a costly mistake as he doesn't have a traditional reversal to get out of situations where he's under pressure. With that being said though, it's no coincidence he wields ice powers, as it's important to keep a cool head while playing Lancelot, because while he may be an expert at getting captured, he's just as good at getting out of these sticky situations as well. Fairy is without a doubt a fan favorite in the Granblue Fantasy fandom. Her early appearance in the gacha game helped cement her popularity very early on, and her many alternate costumes are just a testament to her popularity over the years. In Versus, she plays as a set play / Zeta type character, working in conjunction with her spirit pets either as standalone characters or as sort of enhancements on her whip. The whip almost feels intentional and integral to her character design, as it fits into the motif of a tamer, or I guess in this case a monster/spirit tamer. And this translates very well into verses, as Fairy must work in tandem with her spirits to get her out of sticky situations or to keep up the pressure when she isn't able to do so herself. In fact, one of her moves, GG Get 'em, was so good that it plagued the early years of verses with what felt like an unstoppable loop of pressure before promptly getting nerfed to the ground. While I adore Fairy as a character, I'm sure glad my new playing ability doesn't have to deal with her anymore. Lowain, or Browain as I like to call them, would be considered the joke character of Granblue Fantasy Versus, but I feel like that would be doing the Lan Brothers a little bit of injustice. While in-game, Lowain and his fellow brothers would come up with these crazy stories about their adventures or their heroic deeds, where the stories they tell are clearly fake, it doesn't come off as conceited, but rather charming and hilarious, and that's all in thanks to the expert delivery of the Lan Brothers voice actors. But because their stories are fake, their inexperience on the battlefield is more than apparent, as a lot of his moves are call-ins for his brothers, who fall flat on their face, or summoning robots to do the fighting for them. And when he does do the fighting, the moves are non-optimal and very much sloppy. However, despite their inexperience, that just adds to the charm that the Lowain and his brother just ooze. For full clarity, I hate grappler characters because my personal playstyle always seems to be what grapplers tend to love. It's a skill issue, but despite my hate for grapplers, I can't bring myself to dislike Leiva or Festiva in Japanese because of her character. She's a wrestler with a big heart, and while this isn't something new in fighting games, Leiva's moves are what makes it for me. Name things like leg drop of adoration or headbutt of love. It's just funny hearing these wrestling moves be filled with so much love. Even her Skybound art names are goofy, with it being named Maximum Love Bomb and The Shape of Love in her Super Skybound art. You just can't help but smile in moments like this because, like her description states in the Granblue Gacha, she's just bursting with adoration for almost every living creature. So every time I start seeing red whenever she grabs me in game, I like to think that this is just her way of showing love for me. It doesn't make me feel better when I lose half my health, but I like to think it does. Percival, while blunt and a little brash towards people, is someone who cares deeply about the people of his nation. Because of his upbringing as a royal and the lessons taught by his loving parents and siblings, Percival took these teachings and molded it into a philosophy that the nobles are meant to help the commoners. Though he comes off as a little bit out there calling everyone his vassals, you quickly learn that that's sort of a term of endearment coming from Percival, as he is the future king, learning to make the ideal society for his people, and he'd do anything to protect his vassals. In gameplay, Percival plays a mid-rangey character who gains momentum throughout the match thanks to his stock system that lets him store fire for a much stronger attack in the future. Because of this, Percival plays a bit slow at the start of the match, only to finish the fight in the blink of an eye thanks to the great firepower that he stored up. And perhaps that's why his main element is fire. It's flashy, it's cool, and it fits someone who's confident in their own abilities. Medora is the peerless archer that soars through the air in order to snipe down her enemies. While at first glance she's somewhat vain about her own abilities, you quickly learn that they're pretty well earned, even if she's a little arrogant about it. Despite this, Medora on a deeper level is someone who cares deeply for her family, being the older sister to 2 siblings. While she felt dragged down by her village's old traditions, she comes back in order to save her 2 sisters, but most importantly, save not only her siblings' freedoms, but her freedom as well. In Versus, Medora is the residential zoner who wants to create as much space between you and the opponent as you can. But once that space is secured, you can feel the freedom that Medora has gained by being able to barrage your enemies in a rain of arrows that can catch both jumps, dashes, and crouches. But like all zoners, she suffers from a lack of low health and no real good option of escaping pressure without meter. Despite this, Medora remains a fan favorite, especially to those that delve deep into her story because, well, it's relatable feeling bogged down by something and wanting to seek a freedom that fits your own. Zeta is part of a group called the Society, and as jokerish as this may sound, this is a group of powerful warriors including Vasaka that take on primal beasts, threats that are so big that they're able to destroy the floating islands of the Granblue with relative ease. And upon seeing your skills as someone who takes down the primal beast, she invites you to join the Society, only to wind up joining your crew instead. However, it's her lucky-go-happy personality that ended up making her a fan favorite, especially when put together with her partner in crime, Beatrix, who acts as each other's foils. But because of her bold and brash personality, her gameplay in Versus is that of confidence. She charges in with her Spear of Arvis, something that she carries around with pride. And therefore, the players playing Zeta have to manifest that confidence to go in and exert as much pressure as she can with the many mobility options and strong reads that she can with her counter. And that's why we love Zeta. Her confidence sure is endearing. Vasaka is a character that tells the tale of a once ambitious man, left alone with Survivor's Guild. Being the captain of a successful crew of Skyfarers, he takes on a job to defeat the Lich, but because of the poison, his crew falls one by one, leaving Vasaka with Survivor's Guild. But he carries on their legacy one step at a time, and as a member of your Skyfaring crew, he acts as a protector. And it's why he covers up his body in the black-clad armor to cover up his wounds from the poison that the Lich had given him. In Versus, Vasaka is the residential big-bodied character, and while he isn't necessarily protecting anyone, he sure is great at protecting his health bar as he inches his way towards you thanks to the copious amounts of super armor built into his kit. Because of this, the player ends up playing a sort of minigame where Vasaka wants to reach the opponent while the opponent wants Vasaka out of his range at all times, as once he gets in for a ton of damage. I don't know about you, but if Vasaka said he'd protect me, I think I'd feel really safe.